The Chicago office. The telegram arrived at the Pinkerton National Detective Agency's Chicago office on a gray morning when Lake Michigan churned with whitecaps and the wind carried the smell of rain. William McParland, superintendent of the Western Division, read it twice before setting it on his desk with hands that had steadied themselves through 20 years of hunting outlaws, anarchists, and murderers. Henry Blackburn was dead. The official report from Calgary claimed heart failure. A chambermaid had found him in his hotel room, lying peacefully in bed as though sleep had simply refused to release him. No signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play. The local coroner had signed off within hours, and the body was already being prepared for shipment back to Chicago. McParland didn't believe a word of it. He stood and walked to the window, watching the traffic on West Monroe Street. Carriages and wagons moving through the autumn morning, people hurrying about their business with collars turned up against the wind. Somewhere out there, men were planning crimes, building conspiracies, believing themselves untouchable. And somewhere in the Canadian territories, someone had murdered one of his best operatives and made it look natural. Blackburn had been 43 years old, in excellent health, and careful to the point of paranoia. He'd survived gunfights in Montana, knife attacks in Denver, and a dynamite bombing in Pennsylvania. The idea that his heart had simply stopped while he slept in a Calgary hotel was absurd. "Sir?" Margaret Collins stood in the doorway, her secretary's notebook tucked under one arm. "You wanted to see the Blackburn file?" "Everything," McParland said. "All his reports from the Western Territories investigation. I want to know what he was working on, who he was tracking, and what he'd discovered in the last month." She returned 15 minutes later with a leather portfolio thick with documents. McParland spread them across his desk. Field reports, written in Blackburn's precise hand, telegrams from various offices, newspaper clippings, and a detailed map of southern Alberta with several locations marked in red ink. The investigation had started 8 months ago when a railway surveyor in Montana noticed a pattern. 3 homesteading families in the territories had died under suspicious circumstances. Accidents, illnesses, disappearances, all within weeks of discovering valuable mineral deposits on their claims. The deaths had been scattered across enough time and distance that local authorities hadn't connected them, but the surveyor had worked for all 3 families at different times and recognized the similarity. Blackburn had gone west to investigate. His early reports were cautious, methodical, interviewing neighbors, examining property records, tracking down witnesses. Then, 3 months ago, his tone had changed. He'd found something. A pattern within the pattern. A conspiracy that reached beyond simple claim jumping into organized murder. The most recent reports focused on a homesteading family named Mackenzie. They'd discovered a silver mine on their claim near Medicine Hat, and within days, they'd been targeted by the same forces that had killed the other families. Blackburn had helped them survive an assault, capture several hired killers, and expose a corrupt lawyer named Martin Hartwell, who'd been orchestrating the violence. But Hartwell was a tool, not the architect. Blackburn's final report, dated just 3 days before his death, made that clear. Hartwell's arrest has exposed the conspiracy, but not its leadership. He was hired by men with significant resources, enough to maintain operations across multiple territories, to buy cooperation from local officials, and to eliminate threats with professional efficiency. I have identified 4 possible suspects, all prominent businessmen in Toronto with connections to mining speculation and railway development. I am traveling to Calgary to follow the money trail through banking records. If I can trace payments from these men to Hartwell's accounts, I will have evidence sufficient for prosecution. The report ended there. 2 days later, Blackburn was dead, and according to the Calgary office, all his investigation notes had been stolen from his hotel room. McParland read through the file twice more, paying particular attention to the names Blackburn had mentioned. The Mackenzie family, Martin Hartwell, and the 4 Toronto businessmen whose identities Blackburn had been working to confirm. Someone had killed his operative to protect those names. Someone with enough reach to stage a murder in Calgary and enough influence to ensure the local authorities asked no questions. Someone who believed they'd eliminated the threat and buried the investigation. They were wrong. McParland walked to his office door and called down the hallway. "Collins, send word to Thomas Garrity. I need him in my office within the hour." Thomas Garrity arrived 45 minutes later, shaking rain from his coat in the reception area before following Collins to McParland's office. He was 36 years old, lean and weathered, with the kind of face that could blend into a crowd or command attention depending on what the situation required. He'd been with the agency for 12 years, working cases from St. Louis to San Francisco, and he'd learned his craft from some of the best operatives in the business, including Henry Blackburn. "You've heard?" McParland asked. Garrity nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "The telegram came through this morning. Heart failure, they said." "Do you believe that?" "No, sir." McParland gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit. I want you to read through Blackburn's file and tell me what you see." Garrity took his time, reading each report carefully, studying the map, reviewing the list of names and connections. When he finally looked up, his eyes were hard. "He was murdered," Garrity said. "Whoever he was investigating found out how close he was getting and eliminated him before he could finish building his case. They took his notes to see what evidence he'd gathered and who else might know about the conspiracy." "That's my assessment as well," McParland said, "which means two things. First, Blackburn was right. There is a conspiracy, and it's significant enough that powerful men are willing to commit murder to protect it. Second, those same men now believe the threat has been eliminated." "They're wrong," Garrity said quietly. "Yes, which brings me to why I called you here." McParland leaned forward, his hands flat on the desk. "I'm assigning you to continue Blackburn's investigation. You'll go to the territories, pick up where he left off, and finish what he started. Find out who's behind this conspiracy, gather evidence that will stand up in court, and bring them to justice." Garrity was already nodding. "When do I leave?" "Tomorrow morning. You'll take the train to St. Paul, then northwest through Dakota Territory to the Canadian border. The mounted police have been cooperative with our investigations in the past. I'll send telegrams ahead to smooth your way. Your primary contacts will be the Mackenzie family. According to Blackburn's reports, they're the only surviving witnesses to the conspiracy's operations, and they have evidence that could identify the leadership. They'll also be targets," Garrity said. "If the conspiracy killed Blackburn for getting too close, they won't hesitate to eliminate the Mackenzies. All the more reason to move quickly." McParland pulled a fresh sheet of paper from his desk and began writing. "I'm giving you authorization to offer agency protection to any witnesses you identify. You'll have access to our Calgary and Regina offices for support, and I'm arranging for you to carry credentials that will allow you to operate in Canadian territory. The mounted police will be your official partners, but this is our investigation." Garrity watched McParland write, his mind already working through the logistics. The journey to southern Alberta would take at least a week, possibly longer depending on weather and rail schedules. By the time he arrived, the conspiracy would have had nearly 2 weeks to act on whatever information they'd stolen from Blackburn's notes. The Mackenzie family might already be dead. "Sir," Garrity said carefully, "if I'm walking into a situation where witnesses are being actively targeted, I'll need to know everything Blackburn discovered. Not just what's in these reports, but what he told you in person, what he suspected but couldn't prove, any hunches or theories he shared." McParland finished writing and set down his pen. Blackburn believed the conspiracy had killed at least 6 families over the past 3 years. The Mackenzies are the first to survive long enough to fight back, which makes them dangerous to the conspiracy's operations. He also believed the leadership consists of 4 Toronto businessmen with connections to mining speculation, railway development, and territorial politics. He had names, but he was waiting to confirm them through banking records before including them in his official reports. "Do you have those names?" "He mentioned them in our last conversation, but I have no evidence connecting them to the crimes. Without proof, naming them would be slander at best, career suicide at worst." McParland's expression hardened. "That's why you need to find the evidence Blackburn was gathering. Bank records, payment trails, communications between the leadership and their hired men. Something that will stand up in a courtroom and convince a jury that these men ordered murders. Garrity nodded slowly. And if the Mackenzies don't trust me? If they've already been burned by people claiming to help them? Then you'll have to earn their trust, McParland said. Blackburn managed it. You will too. The superintendent stood and walked to his window again, looking out at the gray Chicago morning. Thomas, I've been doing this work for 20 years. I've hunted train robbers and bank thieves, anarchists and assassins. But this conspiracy represents something different. These aren't desperate men stealing to survive, or fanatics killing for a cause. These are wealthy, educated men who've decided that murder is an acceptable business practice. They've built an organization that spans multiple territories, corrupted officials at every level, and eliminated anyone who threatens their profits. He turned back to face Garrity. If we don't stop them, they'll keep killing. More families will disappear. More homesteaders will die in convenient accidents, and the territories will be built on a foundation of blood and lies. I won't allow that. Blackburn wouldn't have allowed it, and I know you won't either. Garrity stood, understanding the weight of what was being asked of him. I'll find them, sir, and I'll finish what Henry started. I know you will. McParland handed him the authorization letter. Report to me by telegram every 3 days. If you miss a scheduled contact, I'll assume you're in danger and send reinforcements. Trust no one except the Mackenzies and the mounted police officers Blackburn identified as reliable. And Thomas, be careful. These men have already killed one of our best operatives. They won't hesitate to kill another. Garrity took the letter and tucked it into his coat pocket. I'll see you when it's finished. He left McParland's office and walked back out into the Chicago morning, the rain falling harder now, soaking through his coat and running down the back of his neck. Somewhere to the northwest, beyond the prairies and the mountains, a family was fighting for their lives against enemies they couldn't see. A family that didn't know another Pinkerton detective was already on his way to help them. Or that the men who'd killed Henry Blackburn were probably already planning their next move. Garrity pulled his collar up against the rain and headed for his boarding house. He had a long journey ahead of him and not much time to prepare. But as he walked through the gray streets, he found himself thinking about the Mackenzie family. Homesteaders who discovered a silver mine and found themselves caught in a conspiracy that had already killed 6 other families. They'd survived this long through courage and determination. Now they'd have help, whether they knew it yet or not. The hunt was beginning again, and this time it would end with justice, or bodies. Garrity intended to make sure it was the former. Behind him, in the Pinkerton office, William McParland stood at his window and watched the detective disappear into the rain. He'd sent good men into danger before, had lost operatives to violence and treachery and simple bad luck. But something about this case felt different. Larger. More dangerous. The conspiracy had made a mistake when they killed Henry Blackburn. They'd revealed themselves as willing to murder anyone who threatened their interests, which meant they were more dangerous than McParland had initially believed. But they'd also underestimated the Pinkerton National Detective Agency's commitment to finishing what it started. McParland turned from the window and sat back at his desk, pulling a fresh sheet of paper toward him. He had telegrams to send, arrangements to make, and contingencies to plan. Thomas Garrity was heading into a war zone, and he'd need every advantage the agency could provide. The superintendent began writing, his pen scratching across the paper with steady determination. Somewhere in the territories, murderers believed they'd gotten away with their crimes, believed they'd silenced the investigation and eliminated the threat. They were about to learn otherwise. The Pinkerton agency never forgot, and it never gave up. Justice was coming to the Canadian territories, carried by a detective who wouldn't stop until he'd finished what his mentor had started, no matter what it cost.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.